Hey guys, welcome back to Sweet Hot Rods and Honey. We're getting dusty today in the garage. Sanding, not my favorite chore to do, but gotta do it anyway. So stay tuned. Today we're back in the garage doing some body work and we've got to get some fenders on this car. So haven't made a video in a few days. I've been working on locating fenders, driver's side, passenger side for the 55 and I did locate some, luckily. I'm pretty happy about that. And they weren't very far away, in fact. So we've got the passenger side that I've been working on. And this fender was in okay shape. It needed a couple patches and some surface rust. And the driver's side, I've been sanding on. It was pretty well rusted, and let me tell you what I did to it since I picked it up. This one, the driver's side, came from Delaware, and the passenger side came from a guy near Baltimore. So let me tell you about that. So on both fenders, what I did to de-rust was use a flapper sander to de-rust it, use a little bit of muriatic acid and dissolve the rust, and then to neutralize the acid in the muriatic acid, I used a baking soda mix. Cleaned it real well. Then use the dolly and hammer to get dents out as well as possible. On the driver's side, I had to rebuild this front eyebrow, and it turned out quite well. Even with my hack job of MIG welding, it looks pretty good. And with a minimal amount of body filler for the contour. But anyway, so kind of did that on both fenders. The eyebrow on the passenger side, it was replaced. The eyebrow, before I bought it, it had a replacement patch panel. So had to do a little bit of re-welding, and then blended it all in, and so the contour is pretty good. So there's used a dolly and hammer on it, and got the major dents out of it, and then used minimal amount of body filler. But so the steps that I used were de-rusting. First of all, the next step was to use, I used Eastwood's epoxy primer, which is a black, thick primer, and it will seal the bare metal surface. So I did that on the entire car. The next step was to do some light sanding on that to rough it up, and then also to use body filler on the dents and try to flare out all the dents to smooth everything out. So that worked out quite well. And then the third step, which I just did 2 days ago, was used a urethane primer, high build, and that was also from Eastwood, but I've recently got some from Summit. But I used the Eastwood on this, and that's the gray color. So that's what it came out. I did 3 coats of high build just to make sure that it fills in any small pinholes, and so it did. So I'm in the process right now of sanding these down, block sander, with this nice block sanding kit from DuraBlock. And the 4 main pieces I use are this, it's like a 12-inch block with 150 grit sandpaper, and that's not aggressively abrasive, but it takes down, it does do the leveling pretty well with this urethane, and this urethane is pretty hard, but it's sandable. And then the other thing is getting in these tight corners above the wheel well. This block is just too wide for that. So using a narrow block, flat, and this is very true flatness. I don't know if you can see that, but it works well. To get those tight, flat spots. And then I use this round dowel-like guide to get these inside rounded contour corners. And then, just general with this small 6-inch, whatever it is, 6x4 block. And so I've got it down pretty well. After, I've gotten back down to bare metal here, so might have to dolly that down a little bit, hammer it it's flush, but there's just a little bit of, just a tiny high spot. So I'll get that might have to be refilled, or it might just need another coat of etching primer to seal that bare metal. But you can see here, I don't know if you really can, where there's a low spot, you can feel a roughness. Where it's been sanded down, it's pretty smooth. But here's some low spots, kind of a low spot, they may be sanded out. Here's definitely a low spot. And it's you can feel it, and you can also see that it's still the original primed color before you hit it with a sander. It lightens up after you sand it. So I'm going through these guys to get them sanded as well as possible. I may need, it does need some thin coats of a thin type of body filler, and then another block sanding. Here I went through, got down to bare metal again. That's a high spot because there's actually a low spot right here. So I'm going through both of them. I'll do the passenger side next. And hopefully we'll get there relatively soon. I'm eager to get paint on these and get them on the car so I can take it for a test drive down the road. So another thing that I've been trying to locate, and I don't know why, I already have all the engines I need for all my cars, but I'm always looking for another block or a short block to do some work on. And here's the 55s. It's a 350. stock pistons, but it's completely been rebuilt with all new bearings, new pistons. The heads have been machined, and so it's running okay. I haven't taken it down the road, but it's once one jack stands, it rolls and it runs pretty well. So I've gone through all 4 gears on the Saginaw transmission. So I rigged up a jury-rigged seat for the driver, and it's secure. I've got it strapped down, jury-rig strapped down, but it'll work. I just don't want to go falling back. Shouldn't have any problem. So when the time comes, I'll use that to run it down the road, because I'm not completely ready with the upholstering yet. But let me get back to what I was saying. Was I went to look at an engine and a transmission. The guy was selling for a couple $100. I thought, well, it's a small block Chevy. I didn't get the casting number before I drove up there, an hour and a half. So I went to look at it, and I could identify that the transmission was a TH350, and I'm sure it needs to be rebuilt. So I'm assuming, for a couple $100 with a rebuild kit, I can get that working. It doesn't have any major cracks in the in the shell, so I hope that nothing is burned up like the pump. But I've got a 350 rebuild kit that I can use on it. So I thought, well, for a couple $100, if one of these pieces is junk, still probably a head. So I got this small block Chevy, and the guy had identified it as a 350, but I couldn't see the casting number in order to positively identify it. And I couldn't get, it was dark in his garage, and I didn't have a light at the time. I took everything else with me, an engine hoist and my trailer, and I didn't have a flashlight that I could scrape off the casting numbers. Well, come to find out, this block is junk. It ends up being a 265 cubic inch from the mid-70s. And okay, well, you can't do a whole lot with that. I mean, it makes just minimal power. I don't know what the spec is. I thought I read about 150 horsepower stock. But you can't get any more out of this engine because the smaller diameter pistons and the heads, if you put a larger head on it, or different heads, there's going to be interference with the valve and the piston and the edge of the piston, the edge of the cylinder wall. So I was going to be okay with that, but ends up being this engine, this block, is junk because it has a blown out water jacket where it froze. This isn't as bad. This is repairable because it's, it hasn't bulged out. There's a crack for sure, but it hasn't bulged. But the other side is also cracked, and it's got a huge bulge right here. So what I'm going to do is probably strip it down. Maybe if there's a use for this crankshaft, and if it's any good, I may, use it on something. I just can't imagine what. I can strip the heads down, and I can just take it to salvage and get salvage price for, I don't know what it is, 300 pounds or 300 to 400 pounds, whatever this engine weighs, and get 11 cents for cast iron scrap. And I've got some other junk that I got to get rid of. I've got a bent rim that I got to get rid of. It's not worth fixing. And the other thing that came with it was where is it? It's a torque converter. I don't have any idea. I'm guessing it's stock. I don't know what its condition is, if it's usable. But I got that. Got a water pump that should fit any small block Chevy, so that's okay. And the flywheel had been completely bent, so it's junk, so it's scrap. But anyway, that's kind of one of the mistakes I've made. I think all in all, for $200 for all that junk, I can get something that's gonna make it worth at least $200. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. The main emphasis is trying to get these fenders on the car painted. This week, I've got a busy week just doing a variety of things. But I met a few guys that were just looking around for fiberglass fenders. If anybody's interested in fiberglass fenders, I've got a set that are in decent shape. So if you're a racer, and if you just want to minimize weight, that's one way to do it. These steel fenders are certainly heavier than the fiberglass. So that's about it. It's a short little quick video, just to let you guys know what's happening around here. And we're gonna head up to Carlisle Car Show this week. We're gonna go on Thursday. What is it, April 20th? I've ordered a few parts from Fender at East Coast Chevy. They're in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. And they're gonna be at Carlisle, and I've got to pick up a tack strip for a headliner. And because the tack strip that's here is, some of it is missing, and some of it's just, kind of too far deteriorated. So I thought I'm just going to get another brand new set and make it right. So, all right, well, that's about it. Appreciate you watching. If you like it, please hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed, I really appreciate it if you could. And all right, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you the next time.